In the Warren area, you can find 50 supply pods. The first 19 can be easily found inside the strongholds spread out around the map. In this video, we'll be covering the other 31 that are hidden. For the first, start from the central left side of the map. To be precise, from the space rift called the Aerial Fortress. From here, you have to turn around and start climbing on top of the mountain wall behind the space rift. Once you reach its top, you have to go to the right, staying along its overhanging. This will allow you to find a frozen stone you have to attack with a fire weapon 3 times in order to reveal a supply pod that now you can loot. For the next, jump downhill and proceed further, staying along the right overhanging. In one of the corners this way you will find a supply pod to loot. For the third location, it's time to go back to the central left side of the map, where you have to use again the space rift called the Aerial Fortress. Slightly to the left above the hill you will notice a shining boulder you have to reach. Then, in front of it, get on top of the cylindrical structure, from where you will be able to reach the electrical tree top. Up here you will find the supply pod you have to loot. For the first location, turn around and go to the left side of the metallic structure. Once you will reach the support pillar, you have to use the jetpack in order to get on top of it and find the fourth supply pod to loot. For the fifth location, you have to turn around and reach the second support. Now you have to jump down from it and reach the right corner of the lower structure, where you will find the supply pod to loot. For the sixth, get on top of the left support, then jump down toward the left electrical tree. Then get on the right corner of the left overhanging, where you will find a pod covered with the ice that you have to attack with a fire weapon 3 times in order to be able to loot the supply pod you came for. For the next location, turn around and get between the right 2 electrical trees. A little bit further you will find another electrical tree, and using the left boulder you have to boost yourself on top of it using the jetpack. Up here you will find the 7th supply pod to loot. From up here slightly to the right you have to reach a broken plane turbine, then jump downhill from it. Below, close to the shores, you will find a pod covered with the ice you have to attack 3 times with a fire weapon in order to reveal a supply pod to loot. From here you have to turn to the left, and staying along the shores you have to reach the end of the passage. From here you will need to use the icebergs in order to reach the last one that has the supply pod on top of it. Before you will be able to loot it, you have to defeat the treasure guard you will notice slightly on the right. Once done, the red shield will be removed and you will be able to loot the 9th supply pod of the region. For the 10th, it's time to reach the central upper side of the map. We have to start from the space rift called the Southern Fjords. From its location, turn to the left, reach the cooking station and jump down in the water. Then, proceeding further, get on top of the second iceberg, where you will find the supply pod you came for. For the next location, look around and reach the huge circular area not far from here. From the closest iceberg, you have to use the jetpack in order to climb on top of it. Up here you will find a structure, and on its left there is a control panel you have to interact with. It will ask you to insert a password, and the right combination is 7092. Once you will use the right code, you will be teleported inside a new structure to explore. Once here, turn around and reach the end of the left passage, then turn to the right. In the middle of this passage, you have to enter inside the room to the right. Enter inside the central corridor, and at the end of it you will need to go to the left. Then, at the crossroad you have to turn to the right and go downstairs. Reach the end of the passage, then turn to the right. Now, avoid to be caught by the robot and enter inside the last passage to the left. This will allow you to enter a control room, where you have to reach its right corner. At the end of this passage, avoiding the robot, you have to enter the first passage on the left. Here finally you will find the supply pod you came for. Time to move to the top right side of the map. To be precise, you need to reach a space rift called the Fjord Cliff. Get behind the space rift to the left, where on the right side of the lower overhanging you will find the next supply pod to loot. For the next location, go to the left and staying along the overhanging, reach a telescope. Now jump down from the hill, turn around and reach the left side of the forest. Here you will find a pod covered with some ice, and you have to attack it 3 times with a fire weapon in order to remove the ice. Then you will be able to loot that 13th supply pod. For the 14th, turn around and go toward the spherical structure you will notice in the distance. But once you will reach the river, follow it going to the left until you will notice some icebergs. On top of the last iceberg, you will find the 14th supply pod to loot. For the 15th, it's time to explore the central right side of the map. To be precise, you have to start from the space rift called the Warren's Snow Peak. Now you have to jump downhill to the left behind the space rift. After the second overhanging, you have to reach the tent you will notice on the left. From where then you have to go to the left, staying along the overhanging. This will allow you to find a pod covered with the ice. You have to attack 3 times with a fire weapon in order to reveal the 15th supply pod that now you can loot. For the 16th, you have to keep exploring the central right side of the map. But this time you will need to reach the Omni Tower. From up here you have to jump down to the left and reach the sea, where you have to explore the right central iceberg. In the center above it you will find the 16th supply pod to loot. The 17th is also in the central right side of the map, where you have to start again from the Omnium Tower. Jump down to the left and get behind the tower, where you will notice a dandelion on the left. From its location you have to jump downhill to the left and then turn around. Down here you will notice a turquoise wall, and slightly to the right you will find a pod covered with the ice. You have to attack 3 times with a fire weapon in order to be able to loot the 17th supply pod. For the 18th, it's time to move to the bottom right corner of the map. To be precise, you have to reach a space rift called the Warren Shelter. From its location you have to turn to the right and follow the shores. In the distance you will notice a stone arch and you have to climb on top of the left overhangings from its entrance. Go all the way up where you will notice a dandelion, then climb even further to the left. In the corner of the mountain wall here you will find a pod covered with some ice that you have to attack with a fire weapon 3 times in order to be able to loot the 18th supply pod. For the 19th you have to start climbing the right mountain wall and reach the upper side of the bridge. Reach its center and on the right overhanging you will find a gold supply pod to loot. At this point you have to reach the end of the bridge and start climbing further up. From the first overhanging, you have to start climbing on the left mountain wall. This will allow you to reach another bridge and you have to get to its center where you will notice a dandelion. From its location, jump down to the left toward a broken bridge. At its end, you will be able to find and loot the 20th supply pod. For the 21st, turn around and get back up above the bridge. From the dandelion this time, you have to go to the left where you will notice a watchtower. At its base, you will find 3 treasure guards you have to defeat. Once done, get above the platform of the watchtower in order to be able to loot the 21st supply pod. For the next location, turn to the right and reach the stone pillars near the overhanging. Attached to the central one, you will find a pod covered with some ice. You have to attack 3 times with a fire weapon in order to reveal the supply pod to loot. For the 23rd, turn to the left and staying along the right overhanging, find a telescope. From here, jump down toward the bridge you will notice below. In the center of the left overhanging, you will find the 23rd supply pod. For the 24th, turn around and jump down to the left side of the bridge. At its base, above the lower overhanging, you will find a pod covered with some ice. You have to attack with a fire weapon 3 times in order to be able to loot the supply pod you came for. For the next, turn to the right and reach the hole you will notice in the distance. From the dead tree on the left, you will notice above the overhanging a pod covered with some ice. You have to attack with a fire weapon 3 times in order to reveal the 25th supply pod to loot. For the 26th, turn to the right and proceed further along the hall. Near its end, on the left, you will notice a spherical structure you have to reach next. Once close enough, use the jetpack in order to reach its higher point, where you will find a gold supply pod you need to loot. From here, keep exploring the left side of the spherical structure and reach the dead tree at the base of this structure. From where then, you have to go to the left and climb on top of the 2 overhangings that will lead you toward a tent. From where then, you have to climb on top of the left mountain wall. Now proceed further till the overhanging, then you need to climb on top of the right mountain wall. Once up here, you have to turn to the left and on top of the next overhanging you will find a treasure guard you have to defeat. This will allow you to loot the supply pod nearby. Now you need to jump down from the overhanging toward the watchtower, and after it you have to reach the first electrical tree. Now reach its end and jump down to a lower tree where you will find the supply pod. Before you will be able to loot it, you have to reach the base of the tree and defeat a treasure guard. Then get back above it using the jetpack in order to be able to loot the 28th supply pod. Now turn around and start exploring the right passage along the mountain wall. This will allow you to find a pod covered with some ice at the beginning of a small overhanging. You have to attack it 3 times with a fire weapon in order to be able to loot the supply pod you came for. For the next location, use the jetpack in order to get on top of the electrical tree. From up here, reach the next electrical tree in order to be able to loot the 13th supply pod on top of it. For the next location, turn slightly to the right and reach a dead tree near an overhanging. Next, use the jetpack in order to get on top of the closest electrical tree on the left. Now reach the next one, then use the jetpack in order to get on top of the higher one. From here, you have to get on top of the overhanging you will notice on the left. Then go to the left, staying along the overhanging until you will find a pod covered with some ice. Attack it 3 times with a fire weapon in order to reveal the 31st and last supply pod you will be able to loot.